After a forbidden night with the Millionaire CEO, she feared the worst, until he proposed to her. Before we explore all the details of this incredible story, tell us where you're following us from and the time. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a thing, and let's embark on this journey together. She knew she shouldn't have stayed for the celebration, but she did. Elena Brooks adjusted her navy blazer one last time before stepping into the gleaming conference room on the 42nd floor. The Chicago skyline stretched endlessly beyond floor-to-ceiling windows, city lights twinkling like scattered diamonds against the October night. The quarterly celebration was in full swing. Champagne glasses clinked, laughter echoed off marble walls, and the scent of expensive cologne mixed with the aroma of catered hors d'oeuvres. At 28, Eleanor had mastered the art of blending into corporate gatherings. She moved through the crowd with practiced grace, her natural hair pulled back in an elegant twist that framed her warm brown face. Tonight, she wore her favorite dress, a deep emerald that complemented her rich skin tone and made her dark eyes shimmer under the crystal chandeliers. "Elena," called Janet from accounting, raising her glass. "Come celebrate with us. Another record-breaking quarter." Elena smiled, accepting a glass of champagne she didn't really want. She'd been Gabriel Bolt's executive assistant for 3 years, and she knew better than anyone how hard he'd worked for these numbers. While everyone else saw the polished CEO who commanded boardrooms with effortless authority, Eleanor witnessed the late nights, the stress lines that appeared when he thought no one was looking, the way he absently ran his fingers through his dark hair when analyzing complex deals. "Where's the man of the hour?" asked David from marketing, scanning the room. Eleanor's pulse quickened slightly. She'd been wondering the same thing. Gabriel typically made brief appearances at company events, just long enough to shake hands, deliver a motivational speech, and retreat to his corner office. But tonight felt different somehow. "He's probably right behind you." The familiar voice, deep and slightly rough around the edges, sent an unexpected shiver down Elena's spine. She turned slowly, her breath catching as Gabriel Bolt stepped into view. At 37, he commanded attention without trying. 6'2" with broad shoulders that filled his tailored charcoal suit perfectly. He possessed the kind of presence that made conversations pause. His steel-gray eyes were sharp and intelligent, framed by dark lashes that seemed almost unfair on a man. Tonight, however, something was different about those eyes. They seemed less guarded, more human. "Mr. Bolt," Elena managed, her voice steady despite the way her heart had begun racing. "Congratulations on another successful quarter." He studied her face for a moment longer than necessary, and Eleanor felt heat rise in her cheeks. In 3 years of working together, they'd maintained perfect professional boundaries. She organized his schedule, managed his calls, anticipated his needs, and kept his secrets. He was respectful, occasionally charming, and absolutely off-limits. "Thank you, Eleanor. But tonight, I think we can drop the formalities. It's Gabriel." His lips curved into a rare, genuine smile that transformed his entire face. "After all, none of this would be possible without you." The compliment caught her off guard. In the corporate world, Eleanor had learned to make herself indispensable while remaining invisible, a skill that kept her employed but sometimes made her feel like a very efficient ghost. "I was just doing my job," she replied softly. "No," Gabriel said, his voice lower now, meant only for her. "You do much more than that." The moment stretched between them, filled with something Eleanor couldn't quite name. Around them the party continued, laughter, clinking glasses, the soft jazz playing from hidden speakers. But somehow, the noise faded into background static. "Can I get you another drink?" Gabriel asked, nodding toward her nearly empty champagne flute. Elena hesitated. Accepting felt like crossing a line she'd carefully maintained for years. But the way Gabriel was looking at her, really seeing her, made refusing feel impossible. "Sure," she heard herself say. 2 hours later, Eleanor found herself standing on Gabriel's private balcony, the cool Chicago air raising goosebumps on her arms. The city spread out below them, and she'd never felt both so small and so significant at the same time. The champagne had left her feeling lighter, more honest than usual. "I never knew you grew up on the South Side," Gabriel was saying, leaning against the railing beside her. He'd loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves, making him look younger, more approachable. "Most people don't ask," Elena replied, surprised by her own honesty. "I'm usually just the assistant who keeps your calendar straight." Gabriel turned to face her fully. "That's not who you are to me." The sincerity in his voice made Elena's breath hitch. She should leave. She should make polite conversation, finish her drink, and go home to her cozy apartment in Bronzeville. She should remember who she was, and who he was, and all the reasons this moment couldn't lead anywhere. Instead, she found herself asking, "Who am I to you?" Gabriel stepped closer, close enough that she could see the silver flecks in his grey eyes, smell his cologne mixed with something uniquely him. His hand reached up, fingertips barely grazing her cheek. "You're the woman who makes me remember there's more to life than profit margins," he said quietly. "You're the person I look forward to seeing every morning. You're—" He stopped himself, jaw tightening, as if he'd revealed too much. "Gabriel," Elena whispered, her resolve crumbling. He cupped her face in his hands, thumbs brushing across her cheekbones. "Tell me to stop, Elena. Tell me this is a mistake." But Elena couldn't form the words. Because standing there with Gabriel looking at her like she was something precious and rare, she realized she'd been falling for him for months, maybe years, without admitting it to herself. Instead of speaking, she rose on her tiptoes and closed the distance between them. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, as if they were both testing the waters of something forbidden. But when Elena's hands fisted in Gabriel's shirt and he pulled her closer, the gentleness gave way to something deeper, more desperate. Years of professional restraint melted away as they discovered what had been simmering beneath the surface all along. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Elena saw her own shock and desire reflected in Gabriel's eyes. "Elena," he murmured against her forehead, "what have we done?" Before she could answer, before she could think clearly enough to rationalize what had just happened, Gabriel's phone buzzed with an urgent message that would change everything between them, and in that moment, she realized the mistake that would either destroy her carefully constructed life or become the beginning of something she'd never dared to dream. What did this kiss mean for Elena's future? Would you have taken the same risk? The silence in the elevator was deafening. Elena stared at the polished steel doors, watching the floor numbers climb with mechanical precision. 38th floor, 39th. Each ding felt like a countdown to her professional execution. Her reflection stared back at her, the same emerald dress from last night, now wrinkled, her lipstick long gone, her carefully styled hair slightly mussed. She'd barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she felt Gabriel's hands on her face, tasted the champagne on his lips, heard the way he'd whispered her name like a prayer. But then she remembered the message that had shattered the moment, an urgent text from his ex-wife about their daughter's emergency at boarding school. Gabriel had pulled away so quickly, the spell broken, mumbling apologies and explanations as he gathered his things to catch the first flight to Connecticut. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. 42nd floor. Her floor. Their floor. Eleanor's heels clicked against the marble as she walked toward her desk, positioned strategically outside Gabriel's corner office. The morning light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows felt too bright, too exposing. She half expected everyone to know what had happened just by looking at her, but the usual Monday morning chaos provided perfect camouflage. "Eleanor," Janet from accounting rushed over with a stack of papers. "Thank God you're here. Mr. Bolt's first meeting got moved up to 9, and the Davidson account files are missing and—" "He's not in today," Eleanor interrupted, settling into her chair and powering up her computer. Family emergency. She'd practiced saying those words during her sleepless night, but they still felt strange on her tongue. Too intimate, somehow. Like she knew more about Gabriel's personal life than an assistant should. "Oh," Janet's expression shifted to concern. "Is everything okay?" "I'm sure it will be," Eleanor replied, already pulling up Gabriel's calendar. The familiar routine felt like armor, something normal to hide behind while her emotions churned like a storm beneath the surface. Her phone buzzed. A text from her best friend Lydia. "Coffee later? You look like you need it in your Insta story from last night." Elena glanced at her phone screen, remembering the single photo she'd posted from the party, just her and a few colleagues toasting with champagne glasses. She looked happy in the picture, radiant even. Had she been glowing because of Gabriel's attention? Could Lydia see it somehow? Another buzz, this time from an unknown number. "This is Gabriel, new phone. How are you handling things this morning?" Elena's heart stopped. She read the message 3 times before her fingers found the courage to respond. "Everything's under control. How is your daughter?" The response came quickly. "Better. False alarm, thankfully. I'll be back Wednesday." Wednesday. 2 days to figure out how to look Gabriel in the eye without remembering the way he'd kissed her like she was oxygen and he was drowning. "Take your time. I've rescheduled your meetings." "Eleanor." The typing indicator appeared and disappeared several times. Elena found herself holding her breath, staring at the screen. "We should talk when I get back." There it was. The conversation she'd been dreading. The conversation where Gabriel would probably apologize, call it a mistake, remind her of their professional boundaries. The conversation where she'd have to pretend her heart hadn't cracked open last night and let him in. Of course. "Whenever you're ready." She set her phone aside and tried to focus on work, but concentration proved impossible. Every email reminded her of Gabriel's habits, how he liked his coffee, the way he drummed his fingers when thinking, the small crease between his eyebrows when he was stressed. At lunch, she escaped to Grant Park, needing air and space to think. The October afternoon was crisp, leaves turning brilliant shades of orange and gold. She found a bench near the fountain and pulled out her phone to call Lydia. "Finally!" Lydia's voice was warm and familiar. "I was starting to think you'd fallen into a corporate black hole. How was the party?" Elena closed her eyes. Lydia knew her better than anyone. They'd been friends since college, had survived heartbreaks and career changes and family drama together. If anyone could help her navigate this mess, it was Lydia. "It was complicated," Elena began carefully. "Complicated how? Did someone spike the punch? Did Janet from accounting finally confess her undying love for the coffee machine?" Despite everything, Elena smiled. Something like that. "Elena Brooks, you're being suspiciously vague. What happened?" Elena took a deep breath. "I kissed my boss." The silence on the other end stretched so long that Elena checked to make sure the call hadn't dropped. "I'm sorry, what?" Lydia's voice pitched higher. "You kissed Gabriel Bolt? The Ice King himself?" "He's not an Ice King," Elena said defensively, then caught herself. "I mean, it just happened. We were talking on his balcony, and there was this moment, and holy shit, Elena, holy actual shit. You kissed the CEO, the gorgeous, wealthy, completely unattainable CEO. I know it was stupid. Stupid. Honey, this is either the best thing that's ever happened to you or the most beautiful disaster you've ever walked into. There's no middle ground here." Elena pressed her free hand to her forehead. "That's not helping." Okay, tell me everything. Start from the beginning." So Elena did. She told Lydia about the champagne, the conversation on the balcony, the way Gabriel had looked at her like she was the only person in the room. She described the kiss, the intensity of it, the way her entire world had tilted on its axis. "And then?" Lydia prompted. "And then his ex-wife texted about their daughter, and reality came crashing back." "Wait, he has a daughter?" "Apparently. Boarding school. I've arranged travel for family visits before, but we never talked about personal things. Until last night." "Until last night," Elena confirmed. Lydia was quiet for a moment. "Honey, what are you going to do?" Elena watched a young couple walk by, hand in hand, laughing at something only they understood. "I don't know. He wants to talk when he gets back Wednesday." "And what do you want?" The question hit Elena like a physical blow. What did she want? For 3 years, she'd been content being invisible, efficient, safe. But last night, when Gabriel had held her face like she was precious, when he'd kissed her like she mattered, "I want him to mean it," she whispered. "I want last night to be real, not just champagne and proximity." "Then fight for it." Elena's phone buzzed with another message from Gabriel. "Thank you for covering for me today. It means more than you know." She stared at the words, searching for hidden meaning, for any clue about what Wednesday's conversation might bring. "Just doing my job," she typed back, then deleted it. Too cold. "You don't have to thank me," she tried instead, then deleted that too. Too familiar. Finally, she settled on, "I'm glad everything's okay with your family." His response came immediately. "Elena, about last night." Elena's heart hammered against her ribs as she waited for the rest of the message. But nothing came. Just those 4 words hanging in digital space like an unfinished sentence. She looked up at the Chicago skyline, at the building where she'd worked for 3 years, where she'd built a careful, controlled life. Somewhere in that tower of glass and steel, Gabriel's empty office waited for his return. And in 2 days, she'd have to decide whether last night was the beginning of something extraordinary, or the end of everything she'd worked so hard to build. Her phone buzzed one more time. "I can't stop thinking about you." Elena's breath caught. She read the message again, then a 3rd time, making sure she wasn't imagining it. With trembling fingers, she typed back, "I can't stop thinking about you either." The reply came instantly. "Wednesday can't come soon enough." Elena smiled despite her nerves, tucking her phone away as she headed back to the office. Whatever Wednesday brought, at least she wouldn't be facing it alone. Tuesday morning arrived with unexpected chaos. Elena was reviewing Gabriel's Wednesday schedule when her phone rang. Not a text this time, an actual call from his number. Her pulse quickened as she answered on the second ring. "Good morning," she said, keeping her voice professionally neutral, despite the flutter in her chest. "Elena, thank God." Gabriel's voice was strained, rushed. "I need you to cancel everything for Thursday and Friday. Actually, cancel next week entirely. Is everything all right?" The concern in her voice was genuine. "Is your daughter—" "She's fine. Better than fine, actually." Gabriel paused and Elena heard him exhale slowly. "It's complicated. Can we video call? I need to see your face when I explain this." Elena glanced around the office. Most people were focused on their morning routines, but a video call with the CEO would definitely draw attention. "Give me 5 minutes. I'll call you from the small conference room." "Thank you." 3 minutes later, Elena sat in the glass-walled conference room. Laptop open, heart racing as Gabriel's face appeared on screen. He looked tired but somehow lighter than she'd seen him in months. His hair was slightly mussed, and he was wearing a simple grey sweater instead of his usual suit, casual in a way that made him seem more human, more accessible. "Hi," he said softly, and the simple greeting carried the weight of everything unsaid between them. "Hi yourself." Elena couldn't help but smile. "You look different." "I feel different." Gabriel ran a hand through his hair. "Elena, I need to tell you something about why I'm really here, and it's going to sound insane." Elena's stomach tightened. Here it comes, she thought. The explanation that would make Monday night seem like a champagne-fueled mistake. "My daughter Sophia is 15, Gabriel began, "and apparently she's been worried about me for months. She told her school counselor that her dad works too much, never smiles, and seems lonely all the time." Elena blinked, not sure where this was going. "Gabriel, the emergency wasn't medical," he continued. "Sophia staged it. She pretended to have severe stomach pain so I'd rush up here, and then she sat me down and told me she was worried I was going to die sad and alone like her grandfather did." Elena's hand flew to her mouth. "She what?" "She orchestrated the whole thing because she wanted to have what she called a real conversation about my life." Gabriel's expression was equal parts exasperated and affectionate. "Apparently, 15-year-olds are much more perceptive than I gave them credit for." "What did you tell her?" Gabriel's eyes met hers through the screen. "The truth, that someone very special has been making me remember what it feels like to be happy." Elena's breath caught. "You told your daughter about me." "I told her about a woman who makes me smile when she thinks I'm not looking, who remembers how I like my coffee and always has tissues ready during allergy season, who challenges my ideas in the most respectful way possible and makes me want to be better than I am." Tears pricked Elena's eyes. "Gabriel, there's more." He leaned forward closer to the camera. "Sophia wants to meet you. Not as my assistant, as the woman who might be important to her father." Elena's world tilted. She'd expected complications, but not this kind. Not the sweet, terrifying possibility of becoming part of Gabriel's real life, the life beyond corner offices and quarterly reports. "What did you tell her?" "That I needed to talk to you first. That we have things to figure out." Gabriel's voice softened. "Elena, I know this is moving fast. I know Monday night happened quickly, and we haven't had time to process what it means. But seeing Sophia, talking to her about what really matters, it made me realize I don't want to waste any more time pretending I don't care about you." Elena felt her carefully constructed walls beginning to crumble. "I'm scared," she admitted quietly. "So am I, but not of what you think." Gabriel leaned back in his chair. "I'm not scared of the office politics or the potential complications. I'm scared that I've been walking through my life half asleep for years, and you woke me up. I'm scared that if I don't fight for this, for us, I'll regret it for the rest of my life." Before Elena could respond, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Hi, this is Sophia. Dad gave me your number. Is it weird that I'm texting my dad's maybe girlfriend?" "Probably. But I wanted to say I hope you say yes to whatever he's about to ask you, because he's been smiling at his phone for 2 days, and it's honestly kind of gross, but also really sweet." Elena stared at the message, then looked back at Gabriel's expectant face on the screen. "Did you just have your daughter text me?" Gabriel's cheeks flushed slightly. "She may have stolen your number from my phone and taken matters into her own hands. She's persistent." Another text arrived. "Also, I Googled you and you have really pretty eyes." Dad mentioned that specifically, which was embarrassing for everyone involved. Elena couldn't help but laugh, the sound surprising them both. "She's 15, going on 30 apparently." Gabriel smiled, the expression transforming his entire face. "Elena, I know this is unconventional. I know there are rules about workplace relationships and power dynamics, and a million reasons why this could be complicated. But Monday night when I kissed you, it felt like the first real thing that's happened to me in years. Gabriel's voice was steady, certain. I don't want to go back to pretending that connection doesn't exist. Eleanor closed her eyes, thinking of Lydia's words. Fight for it. When she opened them again, Gabriel was watching her with an expression so hopeful and vulnerable that it took her breath away. I don't want to pretend either, she said quietly. Gabriel's smile was radiant. So when you get back tomorrow, we'll figure it out together. Together, Gabriel repeated, like he was testing the word. I like the sound of that. Another text from Sophia. OMG, he's grinning like an idiot. Please put him out of his misery and say yes to the date he's been planning in his head. Eleanor held up her phone so Gabriel could see the message. Your daughter is something else. She gets that from her mother, Gabriel said fondly. Caroline has always been good at cutting through nonsense and getting to the heart of things. She actually texted me yesterday to say she hopes whoever's making me smile knows how lucky they are. Eleanor felt a wave of relief. No vindictive ex-wife, no custody battles or romantic triangles, just a family that wanted Gabriel to be happy. So, Gabriel said, his tone turning playful, since my schedule is mysteriously clear for the rest of the week, and since a very wise teenager thinks her father should ask a certain beautiful woman on a proper date, Gabriel Bolt, are you asking me out? Eleanor Brooks, I absolutely am. The question is, will you say yes? Eleanor looked at Gabriel's face on her screen, hopeful, nervous, completely sincere, and realized that some risks were worth taking. Yes, she said simply. But I have one condition. Anything. Next time you want to have a serious conversation, warn me before your daughter starts texting me. I nearly dropped my coffee. Gabriel's laughter filled the small conference room, warm and infectious. Deal. Although I should warn you, if you're going to be part of our lives, Sophia comes with very strong opinions about everything from coffee shops to movies to whether or not I need a haircut. I think I can handle that, Elena said, surprised by how much she meant it. As they ended the call, Elena sat in the quiet conference room for a moment, processing what had just happened. In less than a week, her orderly life had been turned upside down, and for the first time in years, she couldn't wait to see what happened next. She changed her outfit 3 times before deciding on the first one. Eleanor stood in front of her bedroom mirror Wednesday evening, smoothing down the soft cashmere sweater she'd finally settled on, a warm caramel color that complemented her skin tone. Gabriel had texted earlier suggesting they meet at Millennium Park after work, somewhere neutral where they could talk without the weight of office walls around them. Her apartment in Bronzeville felt smaller tonight, filled with nervous energy she couldn't quite contain. She'd lived here for 2 years, and the cozy space usually brought her comfort. Exposed brick walls decorated with her grandmother's quilts, bookshelves filled with everything from romance novels to business biographies. The small kitchen where she'd perfected her mother's cornbread recipe. Tonight, though, she felt restless, like she was preparing for something that might change everything. Her phone buzzed. Just landed. See you in an hour. Elena's stomach fluttered as she typed back, I'll be there. The October evening was crisp as Elena walked through the park, fallen leaves crunching under her boots. She spotted Gabriel before he saw her. He was standing near the bean, hands in the pockets of a navy peacoat, looking up at the sculpture with the same focused expression he wore when analyzing quarterly reports. Without his usual suit, he looked younger, more approachable. It's strange, he said as she approached, not turning around. I've worked downtown for 8 years and I don't think I've ever actually stopped to look at this thing. It's officially called Cloudgate, Eleanor said, coming to stand beside him, but I've never heard anyone call it that. Gabriel turned to her then and his smile was soft, genuine. You look beautiful. Elena felt heat rise in her cheeks. Thank you. You look... She gestured vaguely at his casual attire. Different. Good different. Sophia's influence. She said suits make me look unapproachably corporate, which I'm choosing to take as constructive criticism. They started walking along the path, the city lights beginning to twinkle as dusk settled over Chicago. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable, but it was charged with possibility. How was the rest of your trip? Elena asked. Gabriel's expression grew thoughtful, eye-opening. Sophia and I had dinner last night, really talked for the first time in months. She told me she's been worried that I'm becoming like my father. What did she mean? My dad was brilliant in business, but he never learned how to be happy. He died at 58, successful and completely alone. Gabriel's voice was quiet. Sophia said she didn't want that for me. Elena felt her heart squeeze. She sounds wise for 15. Too wise sometimes. Gabriel stopped walking and turned to face her. Elena, I need you to know that it's not some midlife crisis or rebound situation. I've been thinking about you for months, maybe longer. Monday night just gave me the courage to finally admit it. Months? Elena's voice was barely above a whisper. Remember last Christmas, the office party? Elena nodded, confused. The previous year's celebration had been subdued. She'd left early, claiming a headache. You wore this deep red dress, and when you smiled at something David said, I realized I'd been watching you all evening. Not as my assistant, but as a woman I found fascinating and beautiful and completely out of my league. Gabriel's honesty was devastating. I spent the next 6 months trying to convince myself it was just attraction, that it would pass. And did it? No, it got worse. Every morning when you brought me coffee, every time you laughed at something on your computer, every time you handled a crisis with that calm competence of yours, it all just made me fall a little deeper. Elena stared at him, processing this revelation. Why didn't you say anything? Because I'm your boss. Because there are rules. Because I was scared. Gabriel reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers. But Monday night, when I kissed you, all those reasons seemed less important than the possibility of losing you entirely. They resumed walking, hands linked, and Elena marveled at how natural it felt. I need to tell you something too, she said. Last spring when you were working late on the Wellington acquisition, I brought you dinner, and you looked up from your papers and said thank you like I'd just saved your life. That's when I knew I was in trouble. Gabriel squeezed her hand. Just dinner? It wasn't just dinner. It was the way you looked at me, like you really saw me, not just the person who keeps your schedule organized. I went home that night and had to give myself a serious talking to about appropriate workplace feelings. How did that work out for you? Eleanor laughed. About as well as your 6 months of trying to convince yourself it was just attraction. They found themselves at the Crown Fountain, water cascading down the glass brick towers. A few couples sat on nearby benches, enjoying the mild evening. Gabriel led Eleanor to a quieter spot, where they could talk without interruption. So where does this leave us? Eleanor asked, settling onto a bench beside him. Honestly, I'm not entirely sure. Gabriel turned to face her. I've never dated someone I work with. I've never introduced anyone to Sophia. I've never felt like this about anyone, period. That makes 2 of us. Eleanor tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. But I know I don't want to go backward. I don't want to pretend Monday night didn't happen or that we're just boss and assistant. Neither do I. Gabriel was quiet for a moment. What if we took it slow, figured it out as we go? Slow sounds good. Smart, even. And in the office? Elena considered this. Professional as always, at least until we figure out what this is and how to handle it properly. Agreed, Gabriel smiled. Though I should warn you, it's going to be difficult to act normal when all I want to do is kiss you again. Eleanor's breath caught. Gabriel, too much? His voice was gentle, teasing. No, not too much. Just... Elena looked into his eyes, seeing warmth and patience and something that looked like hope. Just giving me ideas about how this evening should end. Gabriel's eyes darkened slightly. Eleanor Brooks, are you flirting with me? Maybe a little. Eleanor surprised herself with her boldness. Is it working? Instead of answering, Gabriel cupped her face in his hands, thumbs tracing her cheekbones. Can I kiss you again? Properly this time, without champagne or interruptions? Eleanor's answer was to lean into him, closing the distance between them. This kiss was different from Monday night. Deeper, more deliberate, full of promise rather than desperation. When they finally broke apart, Elena rested her forehead against Gabriel's, both of them breathing hard. Wow, she whispered. Yeah, Gabriel agreed, his voice rough. Wow. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, Elena tucked against Gabriel's side, watching the fountain cycle through its light display. The city hummed around them, but Elena felt cocooned in this moment, in the warmth of Gabriel's arm around her shoulders. I should probably head home soon, she said eventually, though she made no move to leave. I know. Gabriel's arm tightened around her. But not just yet. Elena's phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. Dad's been smiling at his phone for the past hour. I'm assuming the date is going well? Also, he's supposed to ask you about weekend plans. He's been practicing the question for 2 days. Eleanor showed Gabriel the message, and he groaned. I'm never living this down. Weekend plans? Elena asked innocently. Gabriel's cheeks reddened slightly. "I was wondering if you'd like to have dinner Saturday night, somewhere nice, away from the office and prying teenagers." "I'd love to." Elena leaned up to kiss his cheek. "But now I really should go. Some of us have early meetings tomorrow." Gabriel helped her up from the bench, keeping hold of her hand. "I'll walk you to your car." As they made their way back through the park, Elena felt lighter than she had in years. Whatever complications lay ahead, whatever challenges they'd face navigating a relationship that started in the workplace, this felt right. Gabriel felt right. At her car, Gabriel opened the door for her, then leaned down to kiss her one more time. Soft, sweet, full of promise. "See you tomorrow, Miss Brooks," he said formally, but his eyes were warm with affection. "See you tomorrow, Mr. Bolt," Elena replied, matching his tone but unable to hide her smile. As she drove home through the Chicago streets, Elena caught herself humming along to the radio. For the first time in 3 years, tomorrow couldn't come fast enough. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor had never felt longer. Elena smoothed her charcoal blazer for the 3rd time, checking her reflection in the polished steel doors. She'd chosen her most professional outfit this morning. Tailored pants, crisp white blouse, minimal jewelry, as if conservative clothing could somehow mask the fact that she'd spent most of the night replaying Gabriel's kisses. The elevator dinged softly as it reached her floor. Elena stepped out, coffee in hand, prepared to maintain perfect professional composure. What she wasn't prepared for was Gabriel standing at the reception desk, clearly waiting for her arrival. He looked devastating in a charcoal suit that perfectly complemented his steel-grey eyes. His hair was slightly damp from a recent shower, and when he turned to look at her, Eleanor felt her carefully constructed composure wobble. "Good morning, Miss Brooks," he said formally, but there was warmth in his voice that made her pulse quicken. "Good morning, Mr. Bolt," she replied, proud of how steady her voice sounded. "I wasn't expecting you this early. I wanted to review the quarterly projections before the board meeting." Gabriel fell into step beside her as they walked toward their offices. "I trust you had a pleasant evening?" It was perfectly innocuous workplace conversation, but Eleanor caught the subtle question underneath. "Very pleasant, thank you. And you?" "The best evening I've had in a long time." Eleanor's cheeks warmed as she settled at her desk. Gabriel paused at his office door, their eyes meeting for just a moment longer than appropriate. Then he disappeared into his office, leaving Elena to wonder how she was supposed to concentrate on spreadsheets when every nerve ending was aware of his presence 20 feet away. The morning passed in a blur of emails and phone calls. Eleanor found herself hyper-aware of every interaction, the way Gabriel's voice sounded through his office door during conference calls, the subtle cologne that lingered when he passed her desk, the way her heart jumped every time her phone buzzed with what might be a text from him. Around 10:30, Gabriel emerged from his office with a stack of documents. "Could you review these contracts before the Henderson meeting?" he asked, setting them on her desk. "Of course." Elena reached for the papers, and their fingers brushed for the briefest moment. The contact sent electricity shooting up her arm, and from Gabriel's sharp intake of breath, she knew he felt it too. "Thank you," he said quietly, his eyes holding hers for a beat too long. "Elena!" Janet's voice cut through the moment as she approached with her usual armload of files. "Thank goodness you're here. The Davidson account is driving me crazy, and I need someone with actual organizational skills to help me make sense of these numbers." Elena blinked, remembering where she was. "Of course, Janet. Let me just—" "I'll leave you to it," Gabriel said smoothly, retreating to his office, but not before Eleanor caught the amused smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Is it just me, or does Mr. Bolt seem different today?" Janet asked as they spread the Davidson files across Elena's desk. "He actually smiled when he walked past accounting this morning, like a real smile, not one of those polite CEO smiles." Elena's stomach fluttered. "Different how?" "I don't know. Lighter? Less intimidating?" Janet lowered her voice conspiratorially. "Sarah from HR thinks he might be seeing someone. Apparently he's been humming." "Humming? I know, right? Gabriel Bolt? Humming?" Janet shook her head in wonder. "Whoever she is, she's working miracles." Eleanor focused intently on the spreadsheet in front of her, afraid her face might give everything away. "Maybe he's just having a good week. Or maybe our Ice King is finally thawing," Janet said with a grin. "About time, if you ask me. The man works too hard to be alone all the time." The morning continued with similar observations from various colleagues. Elena fielded questions about Gabriel's improved mood, with carefully neutral responses, all while trying to ignore the way her heart raced every time he passed her desk or spoke during the team meeting. During lunch, Elena escaped to the small cafe across the street, needing space to breathe and think. She was stirring her soup absently when her phone buzzed with a text from Gabriel. "How are you handling this?" Elena glanced around the cafe before typing back, "Everyone thinks you're seeing someone. Apparently, you've been humming. Guilty as charged. Hard not to when I keep thinking about last night." Elena's cheeks flushed as she typed, "Gabriel, sorry. Too much for workplace texting? Just unexpected. I'm trying to be professional. You're doing better than I am. I've been watching you through my office window all morning." Elena looked up instinctively toward the building across the street, even though she couldn't see Gabriel's office from here. "That's distracting. You're distracting. The way you bite your lip when you're concentrating. The way you tuck your hair behind your ear when you're thinking. The way you smiled at me this morning." Elena's breath caught. She looked around the cafe again, making sure no one was watching before typing, "You need to stop or I won't be able to focus this afternoon. Should I stop?" Elena stared at the question, her pulse racing. The smart thing would be to say yes, to maintain boundaries, to keep things professional until they figured out how to navigate this properly. But sitting in this cafe, thinking about Gabriel watching her through his office window, she found herself typing, "No, don't stop, Elena. But maybe save the details for Saturday night. Saturday feels very far away. It's only 2 days, 2 very long days." Elena smiled despite herself. "You're the CEO. Can't you make executive decisions about time? If only it worked that way. Trust me, I'd fast forward to Saturday in a heartbeat." Elena's phone buzzed with another message. "I should let you eat your lunch in peace. But for the record, seeing you try to maintain professional composure while I know you're thinking about kissing me is incredibly sexy." Elena nearly choked on her soup. She looked around frantically, as if everyone in the cafe could somehow read her text messages before typing back, "Gabriel Bolt, you are going to be the death of me. I certainly hope not. I have plans for you." Plans? Saturday night plans. Dinner plans, possibly involving more kissing plans. Elena's entire body flushed with heat. "I really need to get back to work." "So do I. But Elena, yes, thank you for last night, for taking a chance on this, on us." Elena stared at the message, her heart swelling with emotion she wasn't quite ready to name. Thank you for making it worth the risk. The afternoon passed more smoothly, though Elena found herself acutely aware of every interaction with Gabriel. During the Henderson meeting, she noticed the way he deferred to her input on scheduling conflicts. When he passed her desk at 4 o'clock, he paused to ask if she needed anything, his voice carrying a warmth that made her toes curl in her shoes. As 5:30 approached, Elena began packing up her desk, looking forward to the weekend and the promise of Saturday night. She was just shutting down her computer when Gabriel appeared beside her desk. "Working late tonight?" he asked casually. "Actually, no. I have plans." Elena smiled up at him. "Dinner with my friend Lydia. She's been demanding details about my mysterious good mood." Gabriel's eyes lit with amusement. "And what are you planning to tell her?" "That I'm seeing someone who makes me smile more than I have in years." "Someone, Gabriel's voice was low, meant only for her. "Anyone I know." Elena glanced around the office, noting that most people had already left for the day. "Tall, dark-haired, incredibly handsome," she said quietly. "Has a tendency to overthink things, and a 15-year-old daughter with strong opinions about his social life. He sounds fascinating." "He is." Elena stood, gathering her purse and jacket. "He's also taking me to dinner Saturday night, and I can't wait." Gabriel's smile was radiant. Neither can he. As they walked toward the elevators together, maintaining careful professional distance, Elena caught her reflection in the glass doors. She looked happy, glowing even. For the first time in her career, she understood why people took risks for love. The elevator arrived, and as they stepped inside, Gabriel reached over and briefly squeezed her hand, a quick, secret touch that sent warmth flooding through her entire body. "Have a good evening, Elena," he said as the doors opened on the parking level. "You too, Gabriel." As Elena drove home through the Chicago traffic, she couldn't stop smiling. 2 more days until Saturday. 2 more days until she could stop pretending that Gabriel Bolt was just her boss and nothing more. Her phone buzzed with one final text. "Sweet dreams, beautiful. Saturday can't come soon enough." Elena's smile widened as she typed back, "Sweet dreams to you too." And Gabriel, "Neither can I." The dress had been hanging in her closet for 6 months, tags still attached. Elena ran her fingers over the midnight blue silk, remembering the day she'd bought it on impulse during a lunch break shopping trip with Lydia. "It's gorgeous, but where would I ever wear it?" she'd said at the time. Lydia had insisted she buy it anyway. "Trust me, the right occasion will come along." Elena smiled at her reflection as she smoothed the dress over her curves. The fabric hugged her figure perfectly, the deep blue bringing out the warmth in her dark skin. She'd spent extra time on her hair, letting her natural curls frame her face in soft waves, and her makeup was subtle but elegant, highlighting her eyes and the natural fullness of her lips. Her phone buzzed with a text from Gabriel. "On my way." "You're going to take my breath away, aren't you?" Elena's heart fluttered as she typed back. "You'll have to wait and see. The anticipation is killing me." "Good. A little anticipation never hurt anyone." "Elena Brooks, you're going to be the death of me." She was still smiling at his message when her doorbell rang. Elena took a deep breath, grabbed her clutch and wrap, and opened the door. Gabriel stood in the hallway looking absolutely devastating in a perfectly tailored black suit, crisp white shirt, and silver tie. His hair was styled just slightly tousled, and when his eyes met hers, his expression shifted from nervous anticipation to something closer to awe. "Wow," he breathed, his gaze traveling slowly from her face down to her heels and back up again. "Eleanor, your stunning doesn't even begin to cover it. You clean up pretty well yourself," Eleanor managed, trying to ignore the way her pulse had accelerated at his obvious appreciation. Gabriel stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and masculine that made her want to step into his arms. "Is it terrible that I want to skip dinner and just look at you all evening?" "Yes," Elena laughed, "because I'm starving, and you promised me somewhere special. Then we should go before I lose what's left of my self-control." Gabriel offered her his arm, and Elena slipped her hand through it, marveling at how natural the gesture felt. 20 minutes later, they were seated at a corner table in one of Chicago's most exclusive restaurants, soft jazz playing in the background and candlelight flickering between them. The ambiance was intimate without being overwhelming, exactly the kind of place where they could talk without worrying about running into colleagues or feeling rushed. "I have to admit," Gabriel said as they studied their menus, "I'm nervous." "Nervous about what?" Gabriel set down his menu and looked at her directly. "About living up to the fantasy I've been building in my head for months, about being interesting enough, charming enough, worthy enough of someone like you." Eleanor's heart squeezed at his honesty. "Gabriel, you don't have to be anything other than yourself. The man who remembers that I prefer tea over coffee in the afternoon. Who notices when I'm stressed and quietly rearranges your schedule to give me breathing room. Who texts his teenage daughter back immediately, even during board meetings. You notice that?" "I notice everything about you," Elena admitted quietly. "The way you drum your fingers when you're thinking, how you always say thank you to the cleaning staff, the fact that you keep a picture of Sophia on your desk facing you, not outward for show." Gabriel reached across the table and took her hand. "And here I thought I was being subtle. Not even a little bit." Elena intertwined their fingers. "But I liked watching you when you didn't know I was looking. You're different when you think no one's paying attention. Softer, more real." Their conversation flowed easily through dinner, touching on everything from childhood memories to travel dreams to embarrassing teenage stories. Elena learned that Gabriel had wanted to be an architect before business school, that he still drew building sketches when he was stressed, and that his biggest fear wasn't failure, but becoming so focused on success that he forgot to actually live. "What about you?" Gabriel asked as they shared a decadent chocolate dessert. "What did little Elena Brooks want to be when she grew up?" "A writer," Elena said without hesitation. "I used to fill notebook after notebook with stories about brave princesses who saved themselves and fell in love with men who saw their strength instead of trying to diminish it." "Do you still write?" Elena shrugged, suddenly self-conscious. "Sometimes. When I can't sleep, I write in my journal. Nothing important. I'd love to read something you've written sometime, if you'd be comfortable sharing it." The genuine interest in Gabriel's voice made Elena's chest warm. "Maybe someday." As the evening wound down, Gabriel walked her to his car, a sleek black sedan that somehow managed to be elegant without being ostentatious. "I have a confession," he said as he opened her door. "Another one? I don't want this evening to end." Gabriel stepped closer, his hand coming up to cup her cheek. "I know we said we'd take things slow, but Elena, being with you like this, without the office walls and professional boundaries, it feels like coming home." Elena's breath caught at the raw emotion in his voice. "Gabriel, I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give," he said quickly. "I just needed you to know that tonight has been perfect. You've been perfect." Instead of responding with words, Elena rose on her tiptoes and kissed him. This kiss was different from the others, deeper, more intentional, full of promise and possibility. Gabriel's arms came around her waist, pulling her closer as she melted against him. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Gabriel rested his forehead against hers. "Elena, I'm falling for you. Have fallen for you if I'm being honest." Elena's heart raced at his confession. "I'm falling too," she whispered. "It scares me how much." "Why does it scare you?" Elena considered the question, Gabriel's hands warm on her waist, his eyes patient and understanding. "Because this feels big, important, like something that could change everything." "What if changing everything is exactly what we both need?" Elena looked into Gabriel's eyes, kind, intelligent, completely focused on her, and realized he was right. For years, she'd built a safe, predictable life. Good job, nice apartment, small circle of close friends. It was comfortable, but it wasn't complete. Standing here with Gabriel, feeling more alive and seen than she had in years, Elena understood that some changes were worth the risk. "Take me home?" she asked softly. Gabriel's eyes searched her face. "Elena, are you sure we don't have to—" "I'm sure." Elena's voice was steady, certain. "Not because I feel pressured or because it's what you expect. Because I want to. Because you make me feel brave." Gabriel's smile was radiant. "You make me feel brave, too." The drive to Elena's apartment was quiet, but charged with anticipation. Gabriel's hand rested on her thigh, thumb tracing gentle circles that sent heat spiraling through her entire body. When they reached her building, Gabriel walked her to her door, both of them moving slowly as if savoring these final moments of anticipation. Elena unlocked her door and turned to face Gabriel. "Would you like to come up? For coffee? Or—" She trailed off, her meaning clear. Gabriel's answer was to cup her face in his hands and kiss her with a passion that made her knees weak. "I would love nothing more," he murmured against her lips. As they climbed the stairs to her apartment, Elena's heart pounded with nerves and excitement. She was about to cross a line she couldn't uncross, take a step that would change everything between them. But looking at Gabriel, seeing the tenderness and desire in his eyes, Elena knew she'd never been more certain of anything in her life. Whatever came next, whatever complications Monday might bring, tonight was theirs, and that was enough. Sunlight filtered through Elena's bedroom curtains, painting golden stripes across the hardwood floor. Elena woke slowly, consciousness returning with the warmth of an arm wrapped around her waist and the steady rhythm of breathing against her neck. For a moment she lay perfectly still, savoring the unfamiliar sensation of waking up next to someone, not just anyone, but Gabriel. Last night had been everything she'd dreamed of and more. Tender, passionate, perfect in ways that made her heart race just remembering. They'd talked until nearly dawn, sharing secrets and fears and dreams between gentle kisses and whispered confessions. Gabriel stirred behind her, his arm tightening around her waist as he pressed a soft kiss to her shoulder. "Good morning, beautiful," he murmured, his voice rough with sleep. Elena turned in his arms, smiling at the sight of his tousled hair and the contentment in his grey eyes. "Good morning yourself. Sleep well?" "Better than I have in years." Gabriel's hand came up to trace her cheek. "No regrets?" "None," Elena said without hesitation. "You?" Gabriel's answer was to lean down and kiss her, slow and sweet. "Only that we waited so long to do this." Elena laughed softly. "We waited exactly as long as we needed to. Some things are worth waiting for." "Speaking of waiting," Gabriel said, glancing at the clock on her nightstand, "I should probably head home to change before Sophia calls. She has radar for these things, and if she suspects I didn't sleep in my own bed—" "Oh God, what will you tell her?" Gabriel grinned. "The truth, that I had the most amazing evening with the most incredible woman, and I'm falling hopelessly in love with her." Elena's breath caught. "Gabriel, too much?" His expression grew uncertain. "Too soon?" Elena cupped his face in her hands. "Not too much, not too soon, just perfect." They lingered in bed for another 20 minutes, talking quietly about their plans for the day. Gabriel had promised to take Sophia shopping for homecoming decorations when she returned from her weekend with friends. Elena had planned to spend the day reading and doing laundry, normal Sunday activities that now seemed impossibly mundane compared to the man in her bed. "I hate leaving," Gabriel said as he got dressed, watching Elena slip into a soft robe. "This feels too good to be real." "It's real," Elena assured him, standing on her tiptoes to straighten his collar. "We're real." Gabriel caught her hands, bringing them to his lips to kiss her palms. Have dinner with me next weekend. I want to cook for you, show you my house, introduce you to Sophia properly. You want me to meet your daughter? I want you to meet the most important person in my world, yes. Gabriel's voice was steady, certain. Only if you're ready for that step. Eleanor thought about everything that meeting Sophia would mean, the seriousness it implied, the way it would change things between them. I'd love to meet her. Gabriel's smile was radiant. She's going to adore you. After Gabriel left, Eleanor made coffee and curled up on her couch, her body still humming with contentment. Her phone buzzed with a text from Lydia. Spill everything. Now. Eleanor smiled, typing back, coffee, 1 hour, Navy Pier. Oh, this is good. I can tell by how long you took to respond. An hour later, Elena found Lydia at their usual cafe, practically vibrating with curiosity. Her best friend was a study in contrasts. Petite and blonde where Eleanor was tall and brunette, impulsive where Elena was cautious, but they balanced each other perfectly. You're glowing, Lydia announced before Elena had even sat down. Like, literally glowing. Either you had the best night of your life or you've discovered some expensive new skincare routine. Eleanor couldn't help but grin. The first one. I knew it. Lydia's voice carried across the cafe, earning them several amused looks. Details. I need all the details. Not all the details, Elena laughed, but Lydia, it was perfect. He was perfect. Elena found herself telling Lydia everything. About the restaurant, the conversation, the way Gabriel had looked at her like she was something precious. She described the tenderness of the evening, the way Gabriel had made her feel beautiful and cherished and completely safe. And this morning? Lydia prompted, stirring her latte with barely contained excitement. This morning he told me he's falling in love with me. Lydia nearly choked on her coffee. He said that after one night? It wasn't just one night, though. We've been building toward this for months, maybe years. Last night just gave us permission to stop pretending. And how do you feel about the L word? Elena was quiet for a moment, considering. Terrified, exhilarated, like I'm standing at the edge of a cliff, but instead of being afraid of falling, I want to jump. That's love, honey. That's what it feels like when it's real. They talked for another hour, Lydia offering advice and moral support, while Eleanor processed the whirlwind of emotions from the past week. When Eleanor mentioned meeting Sophia, Lydia's expression grew serious. That's a big step, Elle. Meeting the daughter means he's thinking long-term. I know, and I want that. God help me. I want everything with him. Then you have to be prepared for the complications. Dating your boss is complicated enough, but dating a single father, that's a whole different level of responsibility. Elena nodded, understanding the weight of what Lydia was saying. I know it won't be easy, but Lydia, when I'm with him, everything else just fades away. He makes me feel like the best version of myself. Then don't let fear talk you out of it. You deserve happiness, Elena. You deserve someone who sees how amazing you are. That afternoon, Eleanor received a text from Gabriel. How would you feel about meeting Sophia this Friday instead of next weekend? She may have mentioned something about being curious about the woman who's made her father so happy. Eleanor's stomach fluttered with nerves and excitement. This Friday? That's soon? Too soon? We can wait if you're not ready. Eleanor thought about Lydia's words, about deserving happiness, about taking chances on love. No, Friday is perfect. What should I know about impressing a 15-year-old? Just be yourself, that's all it took to impress me. Elena smiled, her heart full. What time? 7? I'll cook. Fair warning. Sophia will probably interrogate you about everything from your favorite movies to your intentions toward her father. Should I be prepared with references? Maybe just a list of your top 5 romantic comedies. She takes these things seriously. Elena laughed, already looking forward to meeting the girl who'd orchestrated their first real conversation. Any other tips? She's brilliant, funny, and protective of the people she loves. She'll test you to see if you're worthy of being part of our family. The word family made Elena's heart skip a beat. Was that what Gabriel was offering? Not just a relationship, but a place in his family. And if I pass the test, then you'll have won over the most important person in my world. And I'll have found someone to love for the rest of my life. Elena stared at the message, her heart racing. Gabriel wasn't just falling in love with her. He was already imagining a future together, complete with family dinners and shared holidays and all the complicated, beautiful messiness of building a life with someone. Gabriel, you're making me fall even harder. Good. I want you to fall as hard as I have. How hard is that exactly? Completely, hopelessly, forever kind of hard. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. Happy tears, overwhelmed tears. Tears of pure joy at the unexpected gift of finding love when she'd least expected it. Forever sounds perfect, she typed back. Friday can't come soon enough. Neither can forever. As Elena set her phone aside, she realized that somewhere between Monday's champagne-fueled kiss and Sunday's coffee-scented confessions, she'd stopped being just Elena Brooks, executive assistant. She'd become Elena Brooks, the woman Gabriel Bolt was falling in love with, the woman who was about to meet his daughter and possibly become part of his family. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, it filled her with a warmth that had nothing to do with the October sunshine streaming through her windows and everything to do with the promise of a future she'd never dared to imagine. The bouquet of sunflowers felt heavier with each step Elena took toward Gabriel's front door. She'd changed outfits twice before settling on dark jeans and a soft lavender sweater, casual enough to seem approachable, but nice enough to show she cared about making a good impression. Her palms were sweating despite the cool October evening, and she found herself rehearsing conversation starters in her head. Gabriel's house in Lincoln Park was beautiful, a restored Victorian with warm brick facade and large windows that glowed with welcoming light. It was elegant without being ostentatious, the kind of home that spoke of success earned rather than inherited. Elena could picture Gabriel here, could imagine him reading the morning paper on the front porch or working in the small garden that bordered the walkway. Before she could ring the doorbell, the front door swung open to reveal a teenage girl with Gabriel's steel-grey eyes and a confident smile that belonged entirely to her. Sophia Bolt was prettier than her photos suggested, with long dark hair pulled back in a messy bun and the kind of natural grace that came from youth and self-assurance. "You must be Elena," Sophia said, looking her up and down with frank assessment. "Dad's been pacing for the last hour. It's been kind of pathetic, actually." "Sophia," Gabriel's voice carried a note of gentle warning as he appeared behind his daughter. He looked devastatingly handsome in dark jeans and a navy button-down, sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. "Let Elena get inside before you start embarrassing me." "Too late for that," Sophia grinned, stepping aside to let Elena enter. "I've got 15 years of embarrassing stories. We're just getting started." Elena laughed despite her nerves, immediately charmed by Sophia's directness. "These are for you," she said, offering the sunflowers to the teenager. "Gabriel mentioned you like bright colors." Sophia's eyes lit up as she accepted the bouquet. "These are beautiful. Dad, she brought me flowers. I like her already." "I told you you would," Gabriel said softly, his eyes meeting Eleanor's with warmth and gratitude. Gabriel's home was as welcoming inside as it appeared from the street. The living room was comfortable rather than formal, with overstuffed couches, built-in bookshelves filled with everything from business journals to fantasy novels, and family photos scattered on end tables. Elena noticed several pictures of Sophia at various ages, but also photos of Gabriel with what must be his parents, siblings, extended family. This was clearly a man who valued relationships. "So," Sophia said, settling cross-legged on the couch and patting the cushion beside her, "Dad's told me basically nothing about you except that you work together and you make him smile like an idiot. I need details." "Sophia," Gabriel warned again, but he was fighting a smile. "What? I'm being friendly." Sophia turned back to Elena. "Okay, rapid-fire questions. Favorite movie?" Elena perched on the edge of the couch, glancing at Gabriel for help. He just shrugged, clearly enjoying watching his daughter in action. Pride and Prejudice. The 2005 version. Good choice. Keira Knightley or the BBC miniseries. Both have their merits, but I love the cinematography in the movie." Sophia nodded approvingly. "Coffee or tea?" "Tea in the afternoon, coffee in the morning." "Interesting. Do you like books?" "Love them. I probably read 3 books a month when I can find the time." "What genre?" "Everything. Romance, mystery, literary fiction, biographies. I'm not picky." Sophia's interrogation continued through dinner, which Gabriel had clearly spent considerable time preparing. The salmon was perfectly cooked, the roasted vegetables seasoned to perfection, and the conversation flowed easily despite Elena's initial nerves. "Okay," Sophia said as they cleared the dishes. "I have to ask the serious question." Elena tensed slightly. "Okay. Are you going to break my dad's heart?" The directness of the question caught Elena off guard. She looked at Sophia's young face, seeing genuine concern beneath the teenager's confident exterior. This wasn't a test anymore. It was a daughter protecting her father. "I hope not," Elena said honestly. "I care about your father very much, Sophia. More than I probably should after such a short time." "But," Elena glanced at Gabriel, who was watching the exchange with careful attention. "But I can't promise that things won't get complicated. Your dad and I work together, which makes things tricky, and I've never dated someone with a family before. I don't want to mess up something that's clearly important to both of you." Sophia studied Elena's face for a long moment. "You know what I think?" "What?" "I think you're exactly what my dad needs. Someone who's honest about being scared instead of pretending everything's perfect." Elena felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you. That means more than you know. Besides," Sophia continued with a grin, "he's been humming show tunes all week. It's disgusting. Someone needs to be responsible for that level of happiness." Gabriel laughed, pulling his daughter into a side hug. "I do not hum show tunes." "You hummed Some Enchanted Evening while making coffee yesterday morning," Sophia said. "I have video evidence." "You recorded me?" "For posterity and blackmail purposes." Elena watched the easy affection between father and daughter with a warm heart. This was what Gabriel had been protecting when he'd been hesitant to introduce personal complications into his life. Sophia wasn't just his daughter. She was his best friend, his priority, his joy. After dinner, they moved to the living room where Sophia regaled Elena with stories from her boarding school, her plans for college, and her theories about why her father had been chronically single for so long. "He's been married to his work," Sophia explained. "Which is fine, I guess, but kind of boring. Work doesn't laugh at his terrible jokes or tell him when he needs a haircut." "My jokes aren't terrible," Gabriel protested. "Dad, you once made a pun about quarterly reports that was so bad I considered calling child services." Elena found herself laughing until her sides hurt, completely charmed by the family dynamic. When Sophia excused herself to call a friend, Gabriel moved to sit beside Elena on the couch. "So," he said quietly, "what's the verdict? Think you can handle being part of this chaos?" Elena looked around the warm, welcoming room, thought about Sophia's protective interrogation and Gabriel's terrible jokes and the way they clearly adored each other. "I think this is exactly the kind of chaos I've been missing without knowing it." Gabriel's smile was radiant. "She likes you. I can tell." "How?" "She only brings out the embarrassing stories for people she wants to keep around. If she didn't approve, dinner would have been polite and superficial. And the fact that she threatened to show me your show tune videos, that means you're practically family already." The word family sent warmth flooding through Elena's chest. "Gabriel, I know it's fast," he said, taking her hand. "I know we're moving quickly. But Elena, having you here tonight, watching you with Sophia, seeing how naturally you fit into our lives, it feels right." Elena leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder. "It feels right to me too. Scary, but right. The best things usually are." Sophia returned a few minutes later, immediately noticing their cuddled position on the couch. "Oh good, you're being cute again. Fair warning, I'm going to take pictures and use them to embarrass you both at inappropriate moments." "Noted," Elena laughed. As the evening wound down, Sophia hugged Elena goodbye with surprising warmth. "Thank you for making my dad happy," she whispered, "and for not being weird about the whole teenage daughter thing." "Thank you for sharing him with me," Elena whispered back. Gabriel walked Elena to her car, both of them reluctant to end the evening. "That went better than I hoped," he said, pulling her close. "Your daughter is amazing. Smart, funny, protective. I can see why you're so proud of her. She's the best thing I've ever done." Gabriel cupped Elena's face in his hands. "But you might be the second best thing." "Just second best?" Elena teased. "Ask me again in a year and see if the rankings have changed." Gabriel's kiss was soft and sweet, full of promise and possibility. When they broke apart, Elena felt like she was floating. "I love you," Gabriel said suddenly, the words seeming to surprise him as much as they did her. "I know it's soon. I know it's fast. But Elena, I love you." Elena's heart stopped, then started again at double speed. Looking into Gabriel's eyes, seeing the vulnerability and hope there, she realized she'd been carrying the same truth for days, without having the courage to say it. "I love you too," she whispered. "Completely. Terrifyingly. Forever kind of love." Gabriel's smile was brilliant as he spun her around, both of them laughing like teenagers. When he set her down, Elena felt like everything in her world had shifted into perfect focus. "Forever," Gabriel repeated, pressing his forehead to hers. "I like the sound of that." As Elena drove home through the Chicago streets, she couldn't stop smiling. In one evening, she'd gained not just Gabriel's love, but Sophia's acceptance and the promise of becoming part of a family she'd never expected to find. Monday would bring new challenges, new complications to navigate. But tonight, Surrounded by the warmth of love freely given and joyfully received, Elena felt ready for anything. Monday morning brought an email that changed everything. Elena was reviewing Gabriel's schedule when the message appeared in her inbox, marked urgent and confidential. The sender was someone she didn't recognize, David Richardson from the Corporate Compliance Department. Her stomach sank as she read the subject line, Confidential Inquiry, Workplace Relationship Protocol. Ms. Brooks, please schedule a meeting with me and Mr. Bolt for today at 3 p.m. regarding a confidential matter. This meeting is mandatory and time-sensitive. Regards, David Richardson, Senior Compliance Officer. Eleanor's hands trembled as she forwarded the email to Gabriel with a simple message, We need to talk. Now. Within minutes, Gabriel appeared at her desk, his expression carefully neutral, but his eyes dark with concern. Conference room, he said quietly. 5 minutes. Eleanor's heart pounded as she followed Gabriel into the small glass-walled room where they'd had their video call just over a week ago. It felt like a lifetime had passed since then. Someone knows, Gabriel said without preamble, closing the door behind them. How is that possible? We've been so careful. Gabriel ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Eleanor had come to recognize as his tell when he was stressed. I don't know. Maybe someone saw us at the restaurant. Maybe we weren't as subtle in the office as we thought. Elena sank into a chair, her mind racing. What does this mean? For us, for my job? I don't know, Gabriel admitted, his voice strained. The company has strict policies about relationships between supervisors and direct reports. There could be conflict of interest issues, questions about your promotions, concerns about favoritism. Promotions? Elena's voice was sharp. Gabriel, I've earned every advancement I've gotten through my own work. I know that. You know that. But compliance won't see it that way. Gabriel began pacing, his movements tight and controlled. They'll review every decision I've made regarding your employment, every raise, every assignment. They'll question whether our relationship influenced any of it. Elena felt sick. 3 years of building her reputation, of proving herself in a competitive industry, and now everything would be viewed through the lens of her personal relationship with Gabriel. This is a nightmare. Gabriel stopped pacing and looked at her, his expression torn between love and anguish. Elena, I need you to know that whatever happens in that meeting, whatever questions they ask, what we have is real. Our relationship has nothing to do with your professional abilities. But no one else will see it that way. Elena's voice was hollow. They'll think I slept my way to success, that I used you for career advancement. Hey, Gabriel knelt beside her chair, taking her hands in his. Look at me. You are brilliant, capable, and you've earned every opportunity through your own merit. Don't let fear make you doubt that. Elena met his eyes, seeing her own fear reflected there. What are we going to do? We face it together. We tell the truth, and we figure out how to make this work without compromising either of our careers. The morning passed in a blur of tension and whispered conversations. Elena tried to focus on her work, but every phone call, every email felt charged with potential threat. Colleagues who usually stopped to chat seemed to avoid her desk, and Elena couldn't tell if she was imagining the sideways glances or if word had somehow already spread. At 2:45, Gabriel appeared at her desk looking grim but determined. Ready? Eleanor nodded, gathering her courage. They walked to the compliance office together, maintaining professional distance but drawing strength from each other's presence. David Richardson was a thin man in his 50s with sharp eyes, and the demeanor of someone who took corporate policies very seriously. He gestured for them to sit across from his desk, then opened a thick file folder. Thank you both for coming, he began formally. I'll get straight to the point. We've received information suggesting that you may be engaged in a personal relationship that violates company policy regarding supervisor-subordinate interactions. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. May I ask who provided this information? Richardson's expression didn't change. That's confidential. What I need to know is whether the allegation is accurate. Gabriel and Elena exchanged a look. They'd agreed to be honest, but sitting in this sterile office with Richardson's judgmental gaze upon them, Elena felt every fear she'd harbored come flooding back. Yes, Gabriel said clearly. Elena and I are in a relationship. Richardson made a note in his file. How long has this relationship been ongoing? Romantically, about 2 weeks, Elena answered. But we've worked together professionally for 3 years without any personal involvement. And in those 2 weeks, have there been any changes to Ms. Brooks' job responsibilities, compensation or reporting structure? No, Gabriel said firmly. Elena's professional performance has always been exemplary, and our personal relationship has not influenced any business decisions. Richardson continued his questions for another 20 minutes, probing every aspect of their relationship and its potential impact on the workplace. Eleanor felt stripped bare, as if every private moment between her and Gabriel was being dissected under fluorescent lights. "Here's the situation," Richardson finally said, closing the file. "Company policy strictly prohibits romantic relationships between direct supervisors and their reports due to potential conflicts of interest and liability concerns." Elena's stomach dropped. "What does that mean for us?" "It means you have 3 options," Richardson continued clinically. 1. End the personal relationship immediately. 2. One of you transfers to a different department where there's no direct reporting relationship. 3. One of you resigns from the company. The words hit Elena like physical blows. End their relationship. Transfer away from a job she loved, or leave the company entirely. There's no 4th option. Gabriel's voice was controlled, but Elena could hear the tension underneath. "Not under current policy. I understand this is difficult, but the company has to protect itself from potential lawsuits and ethical violations." Eleanor found her voice. "How long do we have to decide?" 2 weeks. And during that time, you'll need to maintain strict professional boundaries. No private meetings, no personal communication during work hours, no appearance of favoritism or special treatment. As they left Richardson's office, Elena felt numb. The hallway seemed longer than usual, the familiar corporate environment suddenly hostile and unwelcoming. "Elena," Gabriel said quietly as they reached the elevator, "we'll figure this out." "Will we?" Elena's voice cracked. "Gabriel, I can't ask you to give up your position here. This company is your life's work, and you're my life's love." Gabriel's eyes were fierce with determination. "There has to be another way." The elevator doors opened, revealing several colleagues from the marketing department. Gabriel and Elena stepped in, immediately adopting professional postures, the weight of Richardson's warnings heavy between them. That evening, Elena sat in her apartment staring at her phone. Gabriel had texted twice asking if she wanted to talk, but Elena didn't know what to say. Every option felt impossible. Ending their relationship was unthinkable after finally finding love. Transferring departments would mean starting over professionally, and leaving the company entirely would mean abandoning the career she'd worked so hard to build. Her phone rang, startling her from her thoughts. It was Lydia. "You sound terrible," Lydia said without preamble. "What happened?" Eleanor found herself pouring out the entire story. The compliance meeting, the ultimatum, the impossible choice they were facing. Lydia listened without interruption, offering comfort when Elena's voice broke. "What are you going to do?" Lydia asked when Elena finished. "I don't know. Every option feels like losing something important. What does Gabriel want to do?" "He says we'll figure it out together. But Lydia, I can't be the reason he gives up everything he's worked for. And he probably feels the same way about you giving up your career." Eleanor closed her eyes, feeling trapped. "Maybe this is the universe telling us we moved too fast, that we should have waited, been more careful. Or maybe," Lydia said gently, "this is the universe testing whether what you have is strong enough to survive the hard times. Real love isn't just about the easy moments, Elena. It's about fighting for each other when everything seems impossible." After they hung up, Eleanor stood on her balcony, looking out at the Chicago skyline, at the building where she'd fallen in love with Gabriel Bolt. Somewhere across the city, he was probably doing the same thing, wondering how they'd gone from declaring their love to facing an ultimatum in less than 72 hours. Her phone buzzed with a text from Gabriel. "I know you need space to think, but I need you to know something. Whatever we decide, I don't regret a single moment. You've changed my life, Elena. You've made me remember what it feels like to be truly happy. That's worth fighting for." Elena stared at the message, tears streaming down her face, because she realized Gabriel was right. What they had was worth fighting for. The question was whether they were strong enough to find a way to win. "I love you," she typed back. "We'll figure this out. Together." "Together," Gabriel replied immediately. "Always together." Eleanor tucked her phone away and went inside to start making lists, researching options, planning their fight. Because if love was worth having, it was worth fighting for. And she wasn't ready to give up on Gabriel Bolt without a battle. 2 weeks felt like 2 years. Elena stared at the resignation letter on her computer screen, cursor blinking after her typed signature. She'd written and rewritten it a dozen times, each version feeling like another small death. But after sleepless nights of research, phone calls to HR departments at other companies, and countless conversations with Gabriel that left them both emotionally drained, this seemed like the only option that made sense. Gabriel couldn't leave. The company needed his leadership, and he'd spent 8 years building something extraordinary here. She wouldn't ask him to give up his life's work for a relationship that was barely a month old, no matter how deeply they loved each other. But she couldn't transfer departments either. Every other position would be a step backward professionally, and Elena had worked too hard to willingly diminish her career prospects, which left only one choice that preserved both their integrity and their love. Her phone buzzed with a text from Gabriel. "Meeting with Richardson in an hour. Are you sure about this?" Elena closed her eyes, steadying herself before typing back, "I'm sure. It's the right choice. I hate that you have to sacrifice your career for us. I'm not sacrificing anything. I'm choosing you. There's a difference. I love you, more than I can express. I love you too. See you in there." Elena saved the resignation letter and printed it, hands trembling slightly as she slipped it into a folder. She'd already secured 2 interviews at competing firms, both offering substantial salary increases and the chance to work with high-profile clients. Leaving wouldn't be professional suicide. It might actually be the career boost she'd been too comfortable to pursue. Gabriel appeared at her desk precisely at 2:45, looking devastatingly handsome in his charcoal suit, but with stress lines around his eyes that hadn't been there a month ago. "Ready?" Elena nodded, gathering her courage and the folder containing her future. They walked to Richardson's office in silence, both lost in their own thoughts about what this meeting would mean for their relationship and their careers. Richardson was waiting with the same stern expression and judgmental demeanor he'd worn 2 weeks earlier. "I trust you've had time to consider your options." "We have," Elena said clearly. "I've prepared my resignation letter. I'll be leaving the company at the end of the month." Richardson made a note in his ever-present file. "And you're both comfortable with this decision?" Gabriel's jaw tightened. "No, we're not comfortable with it. Elena is an exemplary employee who shouldn't have to choose between her career and her personal life. But given the constraints, this seems like the only viable solution." "I appreciate your honesty, Mr. Bolt. However, there's something I need to discuss with both of you before we proceed." Elena felt her stomach drop. "What now? More complications? Additional punishments for daring to fall in love?" Richardson opened a different file folder, one Elena hadn't seen before. "Over the past 2 weeks, I've been conducting a thorough review of your professional relationship, as is standard protocol in these situations." Elena's hands clenched in her lap. This was it, the moment when Richardson would detail every perceived impropriety, every instance where Gabriel might have shown her favoritism. "What I found," Richardson continued, "was quite remarkable." Elena blinked, confused. "I'm sorry. Ms. Brooks, in 3 years of working for Mr. Bolt, you've received exactly 2 raises, both within standard merit increase parameters and both recommended by multiple supervisors, not just Mr. Bolt. Your performance reviews have been consistently excellent, with feedback from colleagues at every level praising your competence and professionalism." Elena exchanged a confused glance with Gabriel. "Is that unusual?" "What's unusual," Richardson said, "is that despite working closely with one of the company's most eligible executives, you've maintained impeccable professional boundaries until very recently. Most cases I handle involve relationships that have been ongoing for months or years, with clear evidence of favoritism or inappropriate conduct. We take our professional responsibilities seriously," Gabriel said carefully. "Yes, you do. Which brings me to an alternative solution I'd like to propose." Elena's heart stopped. "Alternative solution?" Richardson leaned back in his chair. "The company's policy regarding supervisor-subordinate relationships exists to prevent conflicts of interest and protect against liability. However, the policy does allow for exceptions in cases where the relationship can be managed without compromising professional integrity." "What kind of exceptions?" Gabriel's voice was carefully controlled. "Ms. Brooks, how would you feel about a promotion to senior executive assistant reporting directly to the COO? It would mean a substantial salary increase, expanded responsibilities, and complete removal from Mr. Bolt's supervisory chain." Elena stared at Richardson, hardly daring to believe what she was hearing. "A promotion? The COO has been looking for someone with your skill set for months. When I reviewed your file and saw your qualifications, I realized you might be exactly what she needs. You'd be working at the executive level with C-suite access, handling confidential projects, potentially traveling to our international offices. Elena's mind raced. It wasn't just a lateral move. It was a significant career advancement, the kind of opportunity she'd dreamed about, but never expected to receive so soon. There would be conditions, Richardson continued. Absolute professionalism during work hours, no private meetings in either of your offices, no appearance of favoritism or special treatment. Any future promotions would require additional oversight to ensure they're merit-based. Gabriel found his voice first. For you're saying Elena could stay with the company, and we could continue our relationship. I'm saying that two professionals who've demonstrated the ability to maintain appropriate boundaries might be able to continue doing so with proper structural safeguards in place. Elena felt tears prick her eyes. Why? Why are you offering this? Richardson's stern expression softened slightly. Because sometimes the right thing to do isn't in the policy manual. Your relationship clearly isn't about career advancement or workplace manipulation. It's about two people who genuinely care for each other. The company has an interest in retaining valuable employees, and losing both of you over a relationship that poses no real threat to our operations would be wasteful. Elena looked at Gabriel, seeing hope and relief flooding his features. What do you think? I think, Gabriel said quietly, that this is the answer we've been praying for. Elena turned back to Richardson. I accept. The promotion, the conditions, all of it. Excellent. I'll have the paperwork drawn up immediately. Your new position begins Monday. Richardson closed his files with an air of satisfaction. And Mr. Bolt, try to keep the humming to a minimum. It's been noted by several employees. Gabriel's cheeks reddened slightly. Noted. As they left Richardson's office, Elena felt like she was floating. Not only could she stay with the company, but she'd been offered the promotion of a lifetime. The impossible choice had become an incredible opportunity. I can't believe that just happened, she whispered as they waited for the elevator. Believe it, Gabriel said, his voice thick with emotion. Elena, you did it. You found a way for us to have everything. We found a way, Elena corrected. Together. Gabriel's smile was radiant. Together. That evening, they celebrated at Elena's apartment with takeout Chinese food and champagne, both of them giddy with relief and excitement. Sophia called during dinner, squealing with delight when they told her the news. So you're not breaking up and you're both keeping your jobs? Sophia's voice crackled through the speakerphone. This is like the best romantic comedy ending ever. Life's better than the movies sometimes, Gabriel said, squeezing Elena's hand. Sometimes, Eleanor agreed, thinking about how close they'd come to losing everything, but only when you're willing to fight for what matters. Later, as they sat on Elena's couch with her head on Gabriel's shoulder, Elena marveled at how much her life had changed in just 1 month. She'd gone from being a lonely assistant to being a woman in love with a bright future ahead of her. Any regrets? Gabriel asked softly, his fingers playing with her hair. Eleanor considered the question. A month ago her life had been safe, predictable, controlled. Now it was complicated, exhilarating, full of possibility and risk and love. None, she said firmly. Not one single regret. Gabriel pressed a kiss to the top of her head. Good, because I plan to spend the rest of my life making sure you never have any. The rest of your life? Elena looked up at him, seeing something serious and determined in his grey eyes. The rest of our lives, Gabriel corrected, if you'll have me. Elena's heart swelled with so much love she thought it might burst. Gabriel Bolt, are you asking what I think you're asking? Not yet, Gabriel said with a smile that made her toes curl. But soon, very soon. Elena kissed him then, pouring all her love and gratitude and hope for their future into the contact. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Eleanor realized that sometimes the best love stories weren't about finding someone perfect. They were about finding someone worth fighting for. 6 months later, the ring caught the afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows of their new apartment, casting tiny rainbows across the kitchen counter. Eleanor twisted the simple platinum band with its perfect solitaire diamond, still amazed that she was someone who wore an engagement ring, someone who woke up every morning next to the man she loved, someone who was planning a wedding for next spring in Gabriel's backyard, with Sophia as maid of honor and Lydia threatening to cry through the entire ceremony. The promotion to senior executive assistant had exceeded every expectation. Working with the COO had opened doors Elena never knew existed. International travel, high-stakes negotiations, projects that challenged her in ways she'd never imagined. More importantly, the physical and professional distance from Gabriel had allowed their relationship to flourish without the complications of workplace dynamics. They'd found their rhythm quickly. Professional respect during business hours, stolen lunch dates at quiet cafes across town, evenings spent cooking dinner together in Gabriel's kitchen while Sophia did homework at the counter and offered commentary on everything from seasoning choices to wedding planning. "You're going to wear a hole in that ring if you keep staring at it," Lydia's voice interrupted Eleanor's thoughts as her best friend emerged from the bedroom carrying a garment bag. "I still can't believe it sometimes," Eleanor admitted, turning back to her reflection in the hallway mirror. 6 months ago I was just his assistant. Now you're the woman he proposed to on the Crown Fountain at sunset, while his daughter hid behind a tree taking pictures," Lydia finished with a grin. "Most romantic proposal story ever, by the way. I'm definitely stealing it for my maid of honor speech." Eleanor laughed, remembering that perfect October evening 3 months ago. Gabriel had recreated their first real date, complete with dinner at the same restaurant and a walk through Millennium Park. When he'd dropped to one knee beside the fountain where they'd shared their first honest conversation, Elena had been so shocked she'd nearly said no out of pure surprise. "Speaking of the wedding," Lydia continued, unzipping the garment bag to reveal Elena's dress for tonight's company holiday party. "Are you nervous about tonight?" Elena considered the question as she touched up her lipstick. Tonight would be the first major corporate event she and Gabriel would attend together as an engaged couple. 6 months of careful professionalism had earned them respect from colleagues and management alike, but Elena knew there would still be whispers, still be people who questioned whether her success was truly her own. "A little," she admitted, "but not about us. I'm nervous about the announcement." Gabriel had been selected as the company's new Chief Operations Officer, a promotion that would put him on track to become CEO within 5 years. The announcement would be made tonight, along with the news that Elena had been offered a position in the company's London office, a chance to help establish their European operations while gaining invaluable international experience. "You're going to London for 6 months, not forever," Lydia reminded her gently, "and Gabriel will visit. Besides, think of all the amazing stories you'll have when you get back." "I know. It's an incredible opportunity. It's just that you finally found your person, and now you have to be apart from him." Elena nodded, grateful that Lydia understood without explanation. The London position was everything she'd dreamed of professionally, but leaving Gabriel felt like tearing away part of herself. Her phone buzzed with a text from Gabriel. "Just picked up Sophia from school. She wants to see your dress before we leave tonight. Fair warning, she has opinions about your shoes." Elena smiled, typing back, "Tell her I'm wearing the silver heels she helped me pick out. She says good choice and asks if you're ready to see her dad get embarrassingly emotional during his speech tonight. As ready as I'll ever be. I love you. See you soon. Love you too." Elena slipped into her dress, a stunning navy number that Sophia had declared worthy of a future CEO's wife, and finished getting ready. As she fastened her grandmother's pearl earrings, she thought about how much her life had changed since that October night, when everything began with a champagne-fueled kiss. An hour later, Eleanor stood beside Gabriel in the grand ballroom of Chicago's Palmer House, watching him command the room with quiet confidence as he accepted congratulations on his promotion. He looked devastatingly handsome in his tuxedo, and every time their eyes met across the crowd, Elena felt the same flutter of attraction that had started this whole journey. "Ladies and gentlemen," the current CEO called for attention, tapping his champagne flute with a spoon. "I'd like to take a moment to recognize someone whose dedication and vision have been instrumental in our company's success." Eleanor watched Gabriel step forward, pride swelling in her chest as he was officially introduced as the new COO. His speech was gracious and humble, thanking his team and outlining his vision for the company's future. But when his eyes found Eleanor in the crowd, his voice grew warmer, more personal. "Success in business, I've learned, isn't just about strategy and execution," Gabriel said, his gaze never leaving Eleanor's face. "It's about surrounding yourself with people who challenge you to be better, who support your dreams, and who remind you that the best achievements are meaningless if you have no one to share them with." Eleanor felt tears prick her eyes as Gabriel raised his glass in her direction, a subtle gesture that only she would understand. "To the future," Gabriel concluded, "and to the extraordinary people who make it worth building." The room erupted in applause, but Elena barely heard it. All she could see was Gabriel making his way through the crowd toward her, his smile radiant with love and pride. "Congratulations, Mr. Coe," Eleanor said, as he reached her side. Thank you, Ms. Senior Executive Assistant to the European Operations Director, Gabriel replied with a grin. That's quite a mouthful. I'll get used to it. After all, I'll have 6 months to practice while I'm missing you terribly in London. Eleanor's heart squeezed. Gabriel, hey. Gabriel cupped her face gently, oblivious to the party continuing around them. We're going to be fine, better than fine. You're going to conquer London, build something amazing, and come back with stories that will make Sophia insanely jealous. And you? I'm going to video call you every morning, text you pictures of Chicago snow, and count down the days until you come home to me. Gabriel's thumb traced her cheekbone. Because you will come home to me, Elena. This is where you belong. Elena stood on her tiptoes and kissed him, soft and sweet, not caring who might be watching. I love you, Gabriel Bolt. I love you too, Elena Brooks. Soon to be, Elena Bolt. Soon to be, Elena agreed, the words filling her with warmth and certainty. As they swayed together on the dance floor later that evening, Elena reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From professional colleagues to secret lovers to engaged partners building a life together, it hadn't been easy, but every challenge had been worth it. What are you thinking about? Gabriel asked, spinning her gently under his arm. Just everything. How we got here. How lucky we are. Lucky. Gabriel pulled her close again. I prefer to think we were brave. Brave enough to take a chance on something that scared us. Brave enough to fight for it when everything seemed impossible. Eleanor looked into his eyes, seeing her future reflected there. Wedding planning and London adventures, career successes and quiet Sunday mornings, maybe children someday who would grow up hearing the story of how their parents fell in love at a company party and almost lost everything before finding their way back to each other. You're right, Elena said softly. We were brave, and we're going to keep being brave. Together? Always together. The music swelled around them as Gabriel spun Elena one more time, both of them laughing with pure joy. Across the ballroom, Sophia caught Elena's eye and gave her an enthusiastic thumbs up, while Lydia dabbed at her eyes with a cocktail napkin. In 6 months, Elena would board a plane to London to begin the adventure of a lifetime. In 9 months, she'd walk down an aisle in Gabriel's backyard to marry the man who'd changed everything. In the years that followed, they'd build a company, a family, a life that neither of them could have imagined when they were just boss and assistant, trying to maintain professional boundaries. But tonight, they were simply Gabriel and Elena, dancing to music that sounded like promises, surrounded by people who loved them, grateful for a love that had been worth every risk they'd taken to find it. Some love stories begin with certainty, Elena realized as Gabriel dipped her dramatically, making her laugh until she was breathless. But the best ones begin with courage, the courage to love someone completely, even when you can't see how it will work out. Especially when you can't see how it will work out, because sometimes the most beautiful destinations are the ones you never planned to visit. Final message. True love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone worth fighting for. Eleanor and Gabriel's journey reminds us that the greatest rewards often come to those brave enough to risk everything for love. Their story proves that when two hearts are meant to be together, they'll find a way to overcome any obstacle, break through any barrier, and create a future neither could have imagined alone. Love doesn't always arrive at the convenient moment or in the expected package. Sometimes it comes disguised as a professional relationship, a stolen glance across a conference room, or a moment of vulnerability that changes everything. But when real love appears, it demands courage. The courage to be vulnerable, to fight for what matters, and to believe that some risks are worth taking. Elena and Gabriel chose love over safety, fought for their future when everything seemed impossible, and built something beautiful from the ashes of almost losing each other. Their story is a testament to the power of authentic connection and the magic that happens when two people decide they're worth the risk. What would you have done in Elena's position? Chosen love even if it meant potentially sacrificing your career. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment your thoughts. Your participation is very important to us. See you next time.